Welcome to Lift Your Story podcast with guest Charles Reed, founder of GetPayroll. Hi, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I am with.
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we're pleased to have Charles Reed, and he is the founder of GetPayroll. Thank you so much for being here with us, Charles.
Lorianne, my pleasure. Roy, good to see you.
Good to see you. So you're a CPA. You're certified to go before the federal court, looks like.
Yep. I'm a U.S. tax court practitioner, which allows me to practice in U.S. tax court, even though I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, right. Okay, so the founder of GetPayroll, tell us a little bit about GetPayroll.
Well, GetPayroll, the wife and I started this 30 years ago. We provide payroll services to small and medium-sized businesses around the country. In addition to payroll, affiliated services with partners in some direct HR, workers' comp, timekeeping, posters, labor posters, and other things. But it's directed with the central idea of keeping your payroll legal, legitimate, inexpensive, and keeping the IRS out of your hair. And you can see I'm good at keeping things out of my hair.
Well, I worked for a company and they did outsource their payroll at one time. I don't know what company it was, but they did that, and the owner said it just took a lot of burden away from him.
Before I started this, I was in business, and we always outsource payroll. It's not worth the hassle. It's not worth the time, the energy, the effort. You have to become an expert on payroll and payroll matters and HR and timekeeping and workers' comp and on and on and on and on. When you've got a business to run, I don't build my own cars. I don't build my own house. I don't sew my own suits. I don't even mow my own lawn anymore. Okay. I outsource these things because they're work and it takes knowledge and time and money, and they can do it a hell of a lot cheaper than I can. If I had to sew this jacket, never mind. If I had to sew this jacket, it looked like, never mind.
Well, I can relate because probably back maybe before you started, there was a software called Peachtree.
I remember it well.
Okay, and so we had that for our accounting, had payroll. I had to learn that payroll, and it was kind of tough because we were a union company, and we had all these benefits and percentages of payroll for this and that, and oh my gosh, it was brutal.
Reading union contracts and court orders for garnishments, those things are insomnia cures. Okay.
Well, I've worked with a lot of people that have had payroll for child support and all this different stuff, and they say that is a nightmare. Yep. When you're doing payroll.
It is.
Well, I did that. I was ultimately the office manager for a couple of businesses. One of them I did all the payroll for in the States, believe it or not. I'm in Canada now, and that was interesting. Then I came back to Canada, and then I worked for another one where we outsourced it. And it was so helpful because there's already enough as an office manager with all the bills and everything else that you have to deal with. And that was just one thing that just shortened the amount of time that you had to deal with other things, including human resources. So I think it's a great benefit, and it was so easy, and it could just be inputted into my QuickBooks. You just like insert it all, and it just like that. It was great.
Yeah, and it's gotten easier. I mean, it's all electronic now. We try to do direct deposit for everybody or debit cards for the unbanked. We file things electronically. All your reports come electronically. We don't have to deliver them anymore, and UPS charges. So things have gotten easier and better as technology has changed it, and faster and quicker, and allows you to do more things in your own business, and payroll becomes relatively a nit and relatively inexpensive compared to the time you save. It makes all the sense in the world from my point of view. But
I agree.
Well, direct deposit is one of the best things that ever happened in the world, I think.
Beyond the speed and not having people, I got to go to the bank, cash my check, and on and on and on. The fraud prevention is incredible. Check fraud is a huge crime in the U.S., huge crime. Well, if you don't issue any checks, nobody can copy them and cash them. It just, it cuts down on the fraud immensely.
Well,
And,
yeah.
and then if you use a service bureau, we do, for those people who do want checks, we do positive pay. So we send a file to the bank every day, and if a check comes in, they check it against that file. And if it doesn't match up, they don't cash it. They call us and say, should we cash it? And the normal answer is, yeah, you screwed up on the file. But occasionally the answer is, no, where the hell did that come from? And it never gets cashed. And in this day and age, the bank's not going to take responsibility. If it's a fraudulent check, they're going to stick it to the customer every time. Believe me.
Well, the whole business trend now is no responsibility for me. It's all on you.
That talk about the banking industry. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting
problem.
story. Yeah. Interesting story that you're talking about, because that was one of the scams that I learned about very early. They have these survey things, and I love doing surveys. And this one place sent me this $1,200 check and totally looks legitimate. HSBC, which is, the Hong Kong bank here in Canada, looked
Yep.
just like that. But I already knew the game. What they did is they said, go to Western Union. We want you to write a report. Western Union, ding, ding, ding. Send $300, put the rest in your bank. And, like keep the rest or whatever, keep 300 and send us 900, whatever the thing was. And I never did that because I sat there thinking, I know that it takes 60 days for that check to go through. And that's another issue with checks. Even my own bank, my parents wrote me a check and it took 2 weeks to process.
Exactly.
To make sure that it went through the whole fraud, non-fraud thing. It's ridiculous.
Right. And if you deposited that check, the bank would have charged it back to you 60 days later, the
Right.
whole thing, not just the part you get to keep.
Exactly. And people don't know this. They don't understand this, right? If it looks legit, they'll go ahead with it. It's so sad.
Yeah, I don't open emails anymore unless I'm expecting them. I just frauds everywhere.
I agree. Oh, no kidding, it is. So your new book, the Payroll Book, a guide for small businesses and startups.
Yep.
There you go. Perfect. So, I've had people since I had a company, they always come to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about, and my first advice is, number one, don't go in business. And number two is, if you are, find an attorney and a CPA and meet with them at the same time. So when you set up all your corporation stuff, you got it like it needs to be.
That's good advice. The only other professional I would definitely add would be an insurance agent.
Yeah.
You need to talk to them too, because there's a lot of things out there you don't have any idea of what your risks are in business, and a good agent can explain that to you. But the CPA and the attorney are absolutely necessary. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree fully.
So John Smith comes up to you and he's going to start a business. He wants your advice as a CPA. So what's your advice?
Well, first of all, make sure you want to go into business, okay? Because it's a long, hard road. I was asked at a conference a year or so ago, 2 years ago, about work-life balance for an entrepreneur, and I just cracked up. There is no such thing as work-life balance for an entrepreneur. You work. and hopefully your spouse understands that, because if they don't, you're going to have a hard time in your marriage, okay? Mine worked with me, so we did. But make sure you want to go into business. Make sure you understand the business you're going to go into. And then start a restaurant. If you haven't worked in a restaurant, don't start one. If you want to start one, go work in one for a year. Then you won't want to, I promise you. So know what you're getting into, understand it, research it, delve into it, read books, talk to your attorney, talk to your CPA, read a book on read the payroll book, so you understand what your responsibilities are when you hire somebody, or even if you incorporate, you're now an employee. So all those things that go with it. There's a million things you have to learn. Probably the smartest thing you can do is outsource those things that aren't core to your business. You know, concentrate on your business, your expertise, your abilities, your goals, and let other people for small sums of money handle those things that you'd otherwise have to become an expert at. I mean, the book is 30 years of experience, basically congealed down to 95,000 words. But it took 30 years to know what to write in there. And I still learn every day. I learn new things all the time. Things change. Any business is a constantly changing thing. And you have enough changes in your own industry. And with the pandemic the last year, it's just been insane everywhere for everybody. So it's, under the current U.S. administration, it's not going to get much better. It's still going to be insane. So it's a tough road to hoe. Understand, if you're going to go into business, it's not going to be a bed of roses. It's going to be hard work for many years. I didn't take a vacation for at least 10 years. But it can be a lot of fun. It's very liberating. You have the freedom. If I don't want to come into work till late, I don't. The work doesn't go away, and I got to catch up on it at some point. But I would not go back to work for anybody. The only company I'd go to work for is if they gave me more than half the stock, so I was the sole arbiter of everything. Other than that, I ain't going to go to work for anybody. No, thank you. I like my liberty and my freedom, and the ability to do as I wish, and not be subject to somebody else's whims.
Well, I was in the electrical contractor at one time, okay? So, and there was 3 of us, we were partners. And we found out that one of the guys was stealing money. So we went to an attorney and we got some bad legal advice. Said, just have a board meeting and vote him out. Well, that was all well and good for him, but we were still holding the bag. And so I walk in the office one day, there's a guy standing there and they go, there's Roy Miller. He goes, oh, I'm John Smith with the Internal Revenue Service. This is my badge. I have to show you this. I'm here to collect $127,000 in payroll taxes. Oh, by the way, I cleaned out your bank account downstairs on the way up. Sit down and fill these papers out. And I'm like, what is going on? We had no idea that guy wasn't paying the payroll tax.
And when he showed you a badge as opposed to an ID card, he was also carrying a gun. And he's a law enforcement agent. And he has handcuffs. And I've had him come into my office on a client before too. And that's scary when CID shows up.
So, I was shocked. I mean, anyway, but so when people talk about going to business, I always tell them, especially in construction, I tell them, I don't care what you do, pay your payroll taxes. If you don't eat, if you don't pay your suppliers, it doesn't matter. You pay the payroll taxes first. Otherwise, because they're the easiest to borrow and the hardest to pay back.
I tell potential clients, if you can't make the payroll and pay the taxes, don't pay the payroll. You're better off getting sued by your employees than having the IRS track you down, because those trust fund taxes are not dischargeable in bankruptcy. You can't get away from them.
Yeah.
The only thing you can do is endure long enough for the 10-year collection statute to expire. And I've had clients, I had a restaurateur here in Dallas that was on that, and he paid him $135 a week for 10 years, and then told him to get stuffed.
Well, we had an attorney that was also a CPA. So he said, you've got to pay these. It doesn't matter. They can take your house. They can take everything.
Everything, shirt off your back.
You have to pay those. It doesn't matter. So I met with the guy and said, look, can we we're going to finish the jobs we have. We're going to pay our payroll taxes weekly. We're going to liquidate our stuff. And he said, yeah. So from January to July, every week, I went to the federal building downtown, to his office. Here's our payroll taxes. Here's what we've liquidated. Here's the bill of sale. anyway, so we paid back around 100 and it was with penalties. It was 128,000. I think the actual amount was like 70,000.
Yep.
And we paid back about, I think, 73,000. And so that was it. And so the attorney said, well, let's go down and meet with this. We went down and met with the agent, and he goes, okay, that's great, but you still owe this much, you know? And so the attorney goes, look, you and I both know that these guys got some bad legal advice, and they got screwed. They got left holding the bag. They've done everything they said they would do, and you have the right to waive the penalties. He goes, well, I have to talk to my supervisor. He said, I'll let you know in 30 days. A week later, we got a letter saying that everything was good.
Yeah, as long as you paid the taxes,
Yeah.
the rest of it is negotiable.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and your attorney was smart on that.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's not a fun feeling. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
No.
No, and there's things too that I was going to bring up too. You talked about the pandemic. I bought an auto repair shop. I did what you said. I worked in the business for a couple of years. I really enjoyed it. Was service advisor, sold cars, did all that, started my business. But it was in 2007. And when I purchased it, it was making a profit, but 6 months later, it wasn't. And then, I mean, I carried it on for 3 years by the, to the go. But these are things though that, might put you behind on this sort of stuff. That is unforeseeable. You can do everything from writing a nice business plan, from, checking out the previous business that I purchased and all of that. It still is not an absolute.
No.
And I think that's what people have to understand is they talk about, yeah, do a business plan and everything. And then you think that everything's going to be okay. No.
I tell potential clients and people who want to go into business, go in and think of every possible expense you're going to have. Every possible expense. Spend a lot of time on it, detail it out. Then take that number you come up with and double it.
Mm-hmm.
And you might have enough money. You might not, but you might.
Yeah.
But you'll never think of everything. You'll never, ever think of everything that can happen because it happens. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's going to come slap you up the side of the head. All of a sudden they find toxic waste in the ground behind in the backyard. Sorry, you got to remediate it.
That's some expensive stuff there.
Yeah.
Exactly. All kinds of things happen.
But
I mean, Ray Dalio is brilliant. Ray Dalio is done a lot, but there's still things that he can't tell us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
But, I was thinking that one of the things I always tell people is you need to get a monthly statement, financial statement, and you need to know what it says. I said, if you don't know, have the CPA every month call you and go over that. And he's going to say, hey, look, you got a problem here. He'll see it before you will most of the time.
Their CPA should teach you how to use your financial statements effectively. Don't let him make business decisions for you because they're not in your business, okay? And neither's your attorney. And don't let either one of them make business decisions for you. But they should point out situations, potential problems, your CPA, particularly ratios that don't make sense, ratios that are out of whack with the normal, things that are going the wrong way, your expenses are rising, your revenue's falling, all these kinds of things. He should explain that to you until you can automatically look at them and understand them, okay? But you don't need to prepare them. That's what you got him for. And you need to have him teach you how to analyze them. But he still should, if something unusual happens, be proactive and say, hey, I saw this, you may want to check what's going on.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because a lot of people get that thing, they stick it in a file.
Yep.
So you didn't notice this was happening to you? Well, I didn't pay attention. Well, didn't you get statements? Well, yeah, but I just looked at them and put them in the file.
And then the other thing your CPA should do is help you set up your internal controls. So unpaid taxes don't come down on you. He should know, you should know, the first time taxes aren't paid, a red flag should go up. Okay, period. And he can help you set up. He's trained in internal controls and how to set them up and how to design internal control systems. And that should be something you take the time to do. The moment you have anybody except you in that business, internal controls becomes critical, because employee theft is the biggest crime in the country. Period, new paragraph, end of letter. And I had a doctor come in here not too long ago. His office manager had retired, and there was another person in the office that wanted to take it over. And 2 years later, he prosecuted her for theft and fraud and payroll taxes and unpaid taxes. And they seized his retirement funds, his bank accounts, everything.
Oh my God.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, she got convicted and she's supposed to pay it back, and she never will.
No.
And so he just, had he outsourced payroll and taxes, it wouldn't have happened. He learned the hard way.
That's interesting. This is Canada, albeit, but one of the positions I took on as an office manager was she found out that her previous office manager was stealing, and $100,000 of non-paid GST, PST, what do we have in Canada? And I made a deal with the government, and I did all of what you'd be kind of forensic accounting, found all of the things he didn't pay. We put it through, we met with the auditors, and they were super nice, because I think it's like the thing is if you're good to them and you say, yes, I want to, fix this, they're not going to go. And it wasn't hundreds of thousands. Thank goodness she caught him before that. But as you were saying, it was all check fraud, because now it's harder to do. Yes. Because it can be done digitally, but back then it was all done by check.
I've spent the last 3 years on the IRS Advisory Council, and I've dealt with the IRS here in the US for 30 years, longer, 30 years directly. IRS is 100,000 people. Most of them are nice people. They're civil servants, I understand, and there's not the profit motive, but they're nice people. They're mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters. And if you're nice to them, they will tend to reciprocate that niceness. Not always. Occasionally you get one that's got up on the wrong side of the bed. Okay? It happens. Hang up and call and get somebody else. Okay? But my staff is amazed. I had a case, and I was talking to an examiner in New York, and we spent probably half an hour talking about grandchildren and how much fun they were, and her grandchildren and my grandchildren, and so on and so forth. Then we got down to the business. Well, when we got down to the business, she had already good feelings about me, and she had the ability to make choices. She could abate things, as happened in Roy's situation. She had that choice. If I'd have just screamed at her and yelled bloody murder at her, do you think she was going to abate anything for me? No. But since I was nice to her, she chose, and I'm not saying this because I was nice to her, but she chose to take what was for me the most profitable and easy route. She didn't have to, but she chose to. So I always treat them with respect. I'm always nice to them. And if I get one that's got up on the wrong side of the bed, I excuse myself and come back and find somebody else a day or two later. It's just that simple, because you'll never talk to the same person twice.
No, and I think that's what helped me with my situation, is because I told the guy, every week I'll be down and I'll do this, and I did it every week. I went down and saw him, and so I think when it was all done, it's like our lawyer said. He said, "Look, this guy, he's got a job to do." He said, "But the thing is, he's got discretion, and I think when you did everything you said you would do, and you paid these things back with a little extra, then he thought, okay, these guys do what they said they're going to do. We're just going to let it go. They've paid the money back." He said, they could really press you, but he said, you spent 7 months every week doing everything you said you'd do. So he thinks, oh, these guys, hey, they were in a bad situation. They made it right. It's good.
Absolutely. And so be nice to them, cooperate with them. Doesn't mean you have to, show them your neck or lay on your, show them your belly. It's just, but you be nice, be professional. And that's one reason for us, we take a power of attorney for our clients so we can advocate to the service for them like your attorney did. Okay. And it's not personal to us. It's not food off our table. It's not food out of our children's mouths. So we can afford to be nice to them, talk to them, be reasonable, be patient, and let them have good feelings and use their discretion on our behalf. So it's easier for us to do that than, I find it easier to do it for my clients than on my own taxes, because I get a little hostile about my own taxes. I should use a CPA to talk to them instead of myself.
I was saying that to somebody the other day. I said, it's really crazy. I can fight for other people. I've even gone in there as a paralegal kind of thing to argue, labor not paid proper to her. But to fight for me, I really have a hard time with that one. So you're right. Hire someone else for yourself. Honest to goodness is the easiest way to go.
Yeah, the attorney that represents himself has a fool for a client. Exactly. So does the CPA.
That's good.
Charles, how can our listeners reach out to you?
GetPayroll.com. Obviously, it's behind me on the screen, but I'm available at CJR@GetPayroll.com, Charles J. Reed. That's my email. The book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or at thepayrollbook.com. We picked up that website. So that's how they can find me. And if they've got questions or need help or want me to do their payroll, drop me a line. We'll be glad to talk to you.
Now, you also have 3 other books. Is that correct?
I do. I have 3 older books. They're getting a little obsolete now, but they're still out there on Amazon.
Okay.
They're old. This was published by Wiley last fall, so it's quite current. It's not as current as it could be because of COVID. It was written before that. So, but all the COVID information is on GetPayroll website. So if you have any payroll questions, all of our blogs, all of our educational videos are all on the website. So if you've got questions about payroll, between the book and our website, if it doesn't get answered, let me know and we'll do up a video and stick it on the website.
Okay. Well,
Thank you so much. I have to say something, Charles, you're very dynamic and it's been really fun having you on here. I mean, something like this, a topic, it usually can be somewhat, people might say, oh, accounting's boring. I never found it to be personally. I find it incredible because I know that is what's behind the business, but thank you. You really are, you're dynamic. Thank you.
yes, I agree.
Yeah, we tend to be put in the same category as actuaries, but
Right. Exactly. And we can still wear, whatever we want. We don't have to wear that blue suit that everybody thinks we wear. Anyway, thank you. Lovely.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Charles. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Absolutely.
my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure to be here and see you both today.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.